The moon's thin, silver sickle drifted low over the grass oceans of the Dothraki sea, its light flickering in the restless blades, as though a million hidden fires breathed beneath the steppe. A warm night wind sighed eastward, carrying the scent of dust and distant storms, bending the grasses first one way, then back again. Far above that scented wind rode Drogon, wings carving the dark like two vast scythes, each thunderous beat stirring eddies that sent the stalks rippling in widening rings of shadow. On his back Daenerys Targaryen clung to the ridge between his neck spines, yet she sensed tonight that Drogon was not truly with her. The great black dragon's mind was elsewhere, drawn downward toward the ground, toward something half-remembered, something feral and urgent that pulsed through his blood hotter than any flame he could breathe. She whispered the old Valyrian words that once steadied him. "Lyciri? Blood of my blood? Easy?" But Drogon gave no answering rumble. Instead, his pupils stretched to knives of hungry black, and his wings cupped air so suddenly that Daenerys lurched forward, her silver braid whipping across her cheek as the world tilted beneath. Then he folded his pinions and dove. Air shrieked in her ears, hot and metallic. She had known such dives before, the exhilarating, mind-stealing plummet when dragon and rider were one, but this felt different. Drogon did not spiral for sport. He drove straight down like an arrow launched from a god's great bow. Below, the grasses thrashed under the gale of their descent, revealing glimmers of flint and bone-dry soil. A pair of wild horses bolted, mane streaming. Somewhere a watchfire guttered to sparks. Then Drogon pulled up, jaws parting. A single gout of flame roared from his throat, white-hot, blinding, and seared a circle of earth bare of life. The blaze ended as abruptly as it began, leaving only red glowing embers and a column of oily smoke curling into the night. He landed within the ring with a thud that rippled through Daenerys' spine. The grasses beyond the scorched perimeter bent outward, hissing in the residual heat. Dany slid free of the saddle, boots striking ash. She stroked Drogon's obsidian scales, searching his dark thoughts, but for once nothing opened to her. He turned his monstrous head, exhaled a snort of amber sparks, and then, slowly, almost delicately, began to scrape at the center of the scorched earth. His talons raked furrows, piling clods until a hollow yawned wide and black. The scent that rose was not soil alone. It was deeper, earth mixed with something primal, older than dragons or men. "Drogon?" she asked, but her voice seemed to fall short of his senses. The dragon lowered his body over the hollow, wings mantling the pit, heat radiating through his belly scales. And then he shuddered. A deep, resonant growl rolled from his chest. The membranes of his wings trembled like kettle drums as that growl climbed higher, into a sound she had never heard him make. Long, living, rising. Drogon's sides contracted, muscles rippling. Something at once beautiful and terrifying tightened in the night's thin air. He convulsed, and the earth hissed. A glistening black orb slid from between his hind legs and settled into the hollow with a crackle of charred grass. Steam rose off its shell like incense. The orb was as large as a man's torso, shot through with crimson threading, veins of living fire trapped beneath obsidian glass. Drogon shuddered again, talons gripping ash, and another egg followed, then a third, each exhaling pulses of heat so intense Dany felt them on her face, like the lick of an open forge. She stood transfixed while her dragon laid 7 eggs in all, each shining as though 15 forges burned within its walls. When the last orb touched the hollow's floor, Drogon sagged, wings drooping. Exhaustion tremored through his body, a tremor that ran into her ribs, her heart. Slowly, he coiled his neck around the cluster of eggs, drawing them close beneath the shadow of his wing. The pit glowed a deep, volcanic red. The moon had fled, clouds marched in its place, thick and bruised with the promise of storm. Distant thunder answered Drogon's ragged breathing. A call and response, older than the first Valyrian dragon lord's cry. Dany's mouth was dry as sand. She knelt, hand extended, but stopped short of touching the nearest shell. Even at arm's length the heat stung her palm. And beyond the heat pulsed something raw, chaotic, alive. A beat, a scale of music she had never learned. Within each egg, something stirred. 3 dawns passed. In that time, word spread like wind-whipped fire. Horselords racing through the grasslands smelled the sulfur-tinged smoke and tasted iron in the air. They saw a black shape roosting over a smoking pit and wheeled wide in fear. A Khal scout claimed the grass beneath the dragon had begun to blacken and die. Others swore the blades around the blackened ring grew twice as tall, green fed by hidden power. The tales contradicted themselves as tales must, yet all agreed on one point. Drogon had made a nest. Daenerys camped beside the pit, dragon above, horse below. Her Khalasar, what remained of it after Meereen's fall, and the crossing to Westeros, circled at cautious distance, torches dotting the darkness. She felt their eyes on her back, their questions hanging like smoke. Would she command the beast away? Would she claim these eggs as new weapons? Yet, she had no command to give. Drogon growled at any who neared, even her, though he allowed her within arm's reach of his snout. It was the eggs that mattered now. Their rhythms pulsed beneath the earth day and night, a new heart for the world's heart to answer. On the 4th morning, pale, wind-ripped, carrying scents of rain and horse sweat, Jorah Mormont arrived. He rode hard, cloak streaming, gray wind of the north emblazoned on his breast as the king's new envoy. "Your Grace," he called, reining in short of the killing ring. The small council grows uneasy. Ravens from Old Town speak of portents. They beg you return to Dragonstone where defenses. A thunderous bellow drowned his words. Drogon's neck shot upward, jaws opening, smoke spewing into low clouds. Jorah flinched. Daenerys raised a gloved hand in warning. "Come no closer." Jorah's face, older now, and weather-creased, hardened. "Dragons hatch, my queen. But dragons laid in open plains, unguarded by fire. This is unknown." He gestured at the smoking pit. "The maesters fear plague, though they know not of what sort. They speak of Scalorot that once ran through Valyria, a pestilence of flame and fang. If such a thing awakes, they fear what they do not own," Dany answered. "Tell them Drogon's fire guards the valley as well as stone walls ever could." "Stone walls keep plagues in," Jorah said quietly. "Open grass sees them spread." She had no answer, for she felt the truth of his warning in her bones. Already the soil around the pit had changed. At first black and glassy, it had begun to glimmer under sun, crystalline, as though fused into a mirror glaze. Strange flowers bloomed where the earth met grass, petals red as ruby. Stalks, pale as milk. They exuded a sweet, copperish perfume that drew moths by night and bees by day, though neither species survived long after sipping its nectar. The air above shimmered as if heated by invisible fire. Dany pressed fingers to her temple. "Give me time," she said. "No talk of plague for now." Jorah bowed, reluctant. "Time is a luxury, Your Grace. Your enemies will not grant it." He gazed at the eggs and the dragon crouched above. A shadow flickered behind his eyes, fear dressed in loyalty, and then he wheeled his horse and galloped away. She watched him go, and an emptiness followed. 200 leagues west, on the banks of the Red Fork where willows knotted their roots into cold mud, Samwell Tarly bent over a mildewed scroll. In the crumbling tower the locals still named River Run's Eye. Parchments littered the desk, copied fragments of lost Valyrian bestiaries, inked diagrams of draconic physiology, letters from Archmaester Marwyn scrawled in haste, candle stubs guttered in every corner. Yet Sam's attention fixed on a single line writ in High Valyrian, so archaic even the Citadel's glossaries fumbled it. "And when the worm's seed touches soil untempered by fire or salt, there shall arise from that union a scourge not of mortal flesh, but of living flame, to feast upon the breath of horses and men alike." Sam's hands trembled, smudging fresh ink across the margin. Gilly watched him from the stair, Babe rapped against her breast. "What is it?" "An omen," he managed. His tongue felt too thick for speech. "Or a warning. Drogon never lays. Dragons almost never lay. Outside hot stone. If he has. The chronicles speak of rot. A fever that moves upon the wind, devouring beasts from within." "Mean." Gilly hugged the babe tighter. "Rot of flame? They call it Draconis fatum. Dragon fate." He wiped sweat from his brow with a sleeve. But the ancient tongues pair it with another word. Moriar. Pestilence. A plague carried on dragon fire. Eggs that birth not only hatchlings but sickness in every warm-blooded creature within 100 leagues. He swallowed. Grasslands spread faster than stone. "So what do we do?" Gilly asked. The babe fussed, sensing her fear. Sam looked to the window where dawn leaked through clouds. The sky glowered crimson. Sailors' warning. He thought of ravens, of riders, of Daenerys, whom he trusted with his very life. Yet trust could not douse wildfire. "We send word," he said. "To Old Town, to Winterfell, to every holdfast betwixt. If the tales are true, the realm must be ready, and the Dragon Queen warned of what stirs beneath her own mount." Gilly's eyes were pools of night. "And if she will not listen, then the grass itself will speak," he whispered. At the heart of the Dothraki Sea, storms gathered. Noon skies dimmed to the color of dull iron. Lightning trembled across horizons like cracks in a great glass pane. The air tasted metallic, tingling on the tongue. Khal Moro's riders, scattered since the new queen's ascension, began to regroup in wary knots, drawn by omens they scarcely understood. Horses sank to knees without wound, lungs rattling, and flies hatched black as soot in their dead eyes. The riders burned the carcasses, yet the smoke rose green and sickly, drifting east to where Drogon brooded. Daenerys slept little. Each night, she sat on a padded stool beside the eggs, eyes half closed, feeling their furnace heat soak her skin. She imagined she had become a lone hearth tower in the midst of a great wind, an eternal sentinel. Yet each dawn the world beyond the ring looked less the same. Grasses limped, edges brown. Flowers bloomed with petals sharp as knives, so bright they seemed forged rather than grown. She caught the scent of them in her nostrils, tang of copper and overripe fruit. And sometimes she dreamed of blood pouring like rain over silver-haired children who wore crowns of red petals. On the 10th sunset, Drogon rose on his haunches and loosed a roar that split the sky. The sound buckled clouds. Thunder answered in a cascading chorus. Daenerys felt her heart hammer against ribs. Drogon arched backward, fangs bared, and spewed a column of black fire straight above him. The flame did not burn like ordinary dragon fire. It churned with streaks of purple and bruised green, warping the air around it as though breathing sickness itself onto the wind. The fire lingered long after his jaws closed, spiraling upward like a serpent of smoke and shimmering motes. When the motes drifted down, they coated the eggs in a luminous sheen. Shells once merely hot, now glowed as though lit from within by living suns. Daenerys took an involuntary step back. A powerful instinct told her the moment hung at some terrible cusp. Dragonflies dove toward the pit. Hundreds of them, wings beating in a metallic swarm. They burst into flame the instant they touched that iridescent aura, fell to ash midair. Yet more came, and more, drawn by light or scent or some unheard call. Their minuscule pyres floated like sparks before dissolving into dust. It was beautiful. It was monstrous. Only at dawn did the glow fade. That same dawn, in the outer ring of Khal Moro's encampment, a fever took the horses. They screamed high and shrill, whites of their eyes filmed with crimson webs. Steam poured from nostrils, their hides blistered where sweat should have cooled them. The Dothraki healers, masters of poultice and salve, could only watch as animals collapsed. When they cut one open, a cloud of sulfurous vapor hissed from the cavity. The liver looked half-charred, the lungs riddled with burn marks. No ordinary malady wrought such patterns. Worse, The healers fell ill next. Hands that touched the diseased flesh erupted in blisters shaped like dragon scales, each weeping a clear fluid that stank of pitch. The first healer to die did so at sunset, coughing cinders. Khal Moro broke camp in panic, ordering outriders to ride west, east, north, any direction away from the Black Dragon's nest. But the wind had already shifted, carrying faint spark cinders high into clouds, dispersing them like seeds upon the endless grass. In Dragonstone's map room, Tyrion Lannister traced a finger along an inked path from the Isle of Cedars to Moraine, then across the narrow sea to King's Landing. He paused, brow furrowed, at the grassy icon denoting the Dothraki Sea. "I was never fond of grass," he muttered, voice drear than parchment. "Not unless poured into a goblet after fermenting into something more cheerful." Varys, pale as a ghost in candlelight, stood opposite. "Our queen remains there. The ravens speak of eggs, 7, if rumor holds, and a sickness among horses." Tyrion's gaze sharpened. "Horses of many things. Spiders not least." "Spiders that breathe smoke?" Varys asked. "I fear this is a different web." He unfolded a scrap of parchment bearing Maester Samwell's cramped script. "Draconis fatum," he names it. "The seed of dragons mingling with untamed earth. Plague born of fire." Tyrion's lips tightened. Memory surfaced. Wildfire erupting beneath the Blackwater, bodies flung skyward in green flame. Dragons were children's tales until they devoured fleets. Plague born on dragonfire seemed no less plausible now. "Send word to the queen," Tyrion said. "Advise her to transport the eggs to Dragonstow's forge. Let stone and salt temper them, and if Drogon resists..." Varys' whisper was barely sound. "Then our realm faces a trial no sword may quell." "Wine," Tyrion sighed, reaching for a dusty bottle. "I foresee a drought in every cellar between here and the Red Waste." Night again, over the nest. Daenerys paced the outer ring. She had ordered her remaining unsullied to hold perimeter beyond bowshot of Drogon's flame, yet even they seemed dimmed, their implacable discipline shaded by dread. The copper-scented flowers around the pit had opened wider, petals twitching as if hungry for the stars. She saw tiny meteors of light swirling from them, seed, pollen, she did not know, rising on updrafts toward the clouds. Viserion and Rhaegal, far to the north, had not answered her calls these past moons. Drogon remained her only dragon now, yet Drogon was half lost to a force older than command. She stared at the eggs, at the faint veins pulsing beneath shells hard as stone, and wondered if they pulsed for life alone, or for death. She thought of Moraine's children, burned by accident beneath dragonfire. She thought of Korth's gilded streets, of Astapor's chains, of King's Landing's charred walks. Power was a sword with two edges, salvation and sorrow. "Tell me," she whispered to the unborn within those shells. "Are you salvation or sorrow?" The eggs answered only with silence, and a slow, rhythmic heartbeat she felt rather than heard, thrumming in her bones. Another 7 days passed. Clouds never broke, yet rain never fell. Grasses browned in widening rings. Small animals vanished. Hares, foxes, the rodents that once darted among stalks. In their place, Daenerys found only blackened husks, as though they had been flash-fried from the inside. At night she saw strange lights flicker deep among the grass, like embers cupped by invisible hands. They drifted, paused, sank, then smothered. On the 14th dawn, the first egg cracked. It began as a single fissure, Hairton, snaking over the curve like lightning etched in glass. Drogon, who had hardly moved in days, raised his head. A rumble thrummed through his chest, deeper than any growl she'd heard, more like a song. The fissure branched, glowing. Then, pop, a scale of shell broke free, clattering into ash. A heat-drunk hiss escaped the breach, hotter than any forge. She glimpsed something bright as molten gold writhing inside. Drogon's pupils widened until only a sliver of red rimmed their edges. He snapped his jaws, not aggressive, but anxious, protective. His tail lashed. slicing troughs in fused earth. The song in his throat rose to a shriek. Daenerys stepped back, breath caught. Awe warred with dread in her chest. She remembered the night she first felt Drogon's egg warm in the red wastes, the wonder of new life. This felt like wonder turned inside out, bleeding into nightmare. The crackling spread to the second egg, then the third. Soon all 7 shells spider-webbed with glowing fractures. A chorus of pulses beat against her skin, rapid, fevered. Drogon arched his wings to full span, a cathedral of shadow and flame. One egg ruptured, molten shards splashing like burning glass, and out slithered a hatchling of deepest crimson, scales slick, eyes blank white. It opened its maw and exhaled steam that shimmered violet in moonlight, without yet kindling flame. Daenerys took a trembling breath. The hatchling's breath smelled not of smoke or char but of rot, wet and metallic. Another shell burst. A second hatchling emerged, this one pale as ash, its translucent wings webbed by veins of green-black. It hissed, no, wheezed, and steam rolled from between needle teeth. Where the vapor touched a nearby copper-scented flower, the petals browned and fell. Drogon's song became a roar. He pushed forward, shielding the hatchlings with his forearms, yet they barely acknowledged him. Instead their unformed eyes rolled blind to sky, nostrils flaring as though tasting carrion on the wind. They crawled over ash and ember, leaving trails that smoldered. More eggs split, each birthing a dragonet stranger than the last. One with scales that shifted color like oil on water, another whose wings unfurled ragged, edges smoking. The 7th hatchling broke free with a shriek, so shrill Daenerys clapped hands to her ears. It was black, so black it drank the starlight, and its eyes were pits rimmed in sickly yellow. 7 lives where once there had been none, yet life was the wrong word. These creatures pulsed with vigor, yes, but also with something off. A feverish, unclean vitality. Daenerys felt it through her boots, vibrating the earth. Heat rolled off them in waves. Grass wilted as they crawled. Drogon tried to herd them together, but they scattered, movements jerky, half mindless. One slithered toward Dany, mouth gaping. Instinctively she stepped back, and the hatchling inhaled. For an instant its belly glowed violet, then belched a plume of oily smoke. The smoke wafted across her arm. The fine hairs on her skin crisped. She gasped. Pain knifed her senses, sharp, burning, and she staggered. A patch of reddened blisters erupted along her forearm in the shape of scales. She bit back a cry, eyes wide on the dragonet. It hissed again, confused, and turned elsewhere. Drogon thundered, wings beating, corralling the hatchlings with awkward sweeps. But the black one skittered under his shoulder and darted into grasses beyond the ring. Another followed. Soon 4 hatchlings slipped free, disappearing into the waving sea like serpents into water. No, Daenerys shouted, ignoring pain as she lurched after them. But Drogon swung his tail across her path, forcing her back. His eyes met hers, burning red. A plea? Warning? She could not tell. All she knew was the hatchlings were going free, and the world would change for it. Night swallowed them. The 4 hatchlings scattered like sparks into tall grass. Their footfalls were near silent, but their heat lingered, glowing faint beneath the stalks. Each hatchling breathed its own odd vapor, purple, green, black, ash-white, that left curling motifs in the air, shapes that refused to disperse. A lone herder, Caros son of Koti, glimpsed one such glow an hour later. He thought it a will-o'-wisp and followed, curious. The glow halted near a patch of withered reeds. As Caro parted the grass, a thin stream of dark smoke drifted over his face. His lungs seized. He tried to scream, but ash filled his throat. By dawn his corpse lay contorted, mouth locked open, eyes bubbled like tar. Around him 7 more bodies, less men than twisted charcoal, marked where his bloodkin had tried to help. The hatchling moved on. Samwell never slept the night the ravens came. One from River Run's Eye, one from Volantis, one from Yunkai. Each bore scraps of panic, men coughing sparks, burned grass growing blue, horses dead from fevers that melted lungs. A pattern traced itself across the parchment maps. A fan splayed outward from the Dothraki Sea. When Gilly found him at dawn, Sam had drawn a circle. A vast one, stretching from Pentos in the west to the Bones in the east. "That's madness," she whispered, seeing how far the arc reached. "Not madness," he croaked. "Math." He tapped the map. "The winds west to east this season. At average speed, the spores, if spores they are, could drift 300 miles in under a fortnight. Add riders carrying sickness in flesh." His voice broke. "Winterfell is within the arc." Gilly's breath shuddered. "But dragons can be killed. Drogon can be killed." Sam's hand curled on the map, crinkling its edges. "Killed how?" he asked. "Scorpions failed once. Wildfire? And what of 7 more?" "Smaller but growing. And what if with each kill we break more shell, more plague into air?" He looked up. Terror pinched new lines around his eyes. "What if the dragon is not the plague's source, but merely its shepherd?" Gilly said nothing. The babe whimpered. In the far north, beneath Winterfell's crypts, Bran Stark watched threads of luminous mist weave a pattern only he could see. Ravens perched silent on stone beams. Their eyes glowed faint, reflecting the power coursing through him. He exhaled slow and deep. Fire and ash. Seeds of flame drifting on wind. Black wings beating a song of endings. Time unfolded like parchment, both charred and still unburned. In the pattern he saw Daenerys, arm blistered, face lit by eggs that were not mere eggs. He saw grass burning without fire. Cities shrouded in haze. He watched rivers boil, then flow cool again under moonlight red as rust. Through it all, a black dragon roared. A roar of sorrow. Love turned to doom. Bran opened milky eyes. "It begins," he whispered, though no one waited to hear. Daenerys bound her weeping arm and watched smoke rise from distant camps. Drogon sprawled over the 3 remaining hatchlings, now too weak to flee but not too weak to bite. They gnawed at his scales, seeking something she could not name. His hide blistered where their teeth touched, yet he endured, humming that low song. Every few breaths he raised his head, gazing toward the horizon where his lost hatchlings roamed. In his eyes she saw hunger, fear, and an unspoken question. Which is stronger, blood or fire? She had no answer, only the sense that beyond the rim of the world a shadow spread, shaped like wings too many and flames too foul. And when that shadow reached the cities of men, no keep, no castle, no kingdom would cage it. So she sat, skin burning with each heartbeat, while the dragon plague hatched its future in the grass. Dawn after dawn she waited, mind smoldering with dread and hope alike. Somewhere behind her, the realms of men stirred spears, sharpened quills, whispered prayers. Somewhere before her, the hatchlings' unclean hearts drummed faster each hour. And always, in the distance, the wind carried a faint rising chorus, the cough of horses, the crackle of dry grass igniting, the first screams of men who learned too late that fire can wear 1,000 forms, and not all obey their mothers. Thus the Dothraki Sea, once endless and wild, became the womb of a new age, one gestating not mere dragons, but a contagion of flame that drank breath and hope alike. And Daenerys Targaryen, mother of dragons, found herself upon the knife edge of a choice no prophecy foretold. Quell the brood she had birthed, or watch the world bathe in its fever heat. The choice waited with her in every long hour, as the eggshell shards smoked, as flowers of fire bloomed wider, as the sky dimmed beneath a haze no wind dispersed. Time stretched, aching, measured by distant thunder and the soft cracking of fresh scale. The newborn plague breathed. The grasslands listened, and the world held its breath for what would follow. Oh. Samwell Tarly's quill stuttered across vellum as dawnlight seeped through River Run's broken shutters, drawing pale ribbons across towers that still reeked of river mud and the faint copper tang of Faroth fires. For 3 nights he had labored without sleep, assembling every scrap of lore he could scrape from half-rotted codices and yellowed merchant ledgers that spoke in rumor and happenstance of draconic plagues. His eyes, bloodshot and gritty with fatigue, tracked each line twice, then thrice, searching for patterns. But the parchments were a puzzle whose pieces refused to align. Scattered mention of blackened fields in the old Roinar Vales, a plague that burst from dragons' breaths near Illyria centuries before Valeria's doom. One fragment from Volantine sailors who claimed to see birds fall from the sky like burning leaves when a red-scaled monster nested in the smoking coast. Hard facts were few, superstition rife. He dipped quill, scribbled fresh lines. Fever within 1 hour of exposure. Blistering lesions akin to scale pattern. Sulphurous breath preceding fatal lung convulsions. No maester's remedy known. Prognosis: death in 2 days for common men, 3 for healthy horse. Children oft perish before sunset. He paused, pinched the bridge of his nose. Numbers, each character, a small coffin. He set the quill aside and allowed his gaze to drift beyond the cracked tower arrow slit. Dawn's haze bore hues of tarnished brass. Eastward, the sky darkened already, though the sun had yet to climb. Smoke again, riding a high current, bending north. None here had lit such fires. His belly clenched. Footfalls on stairstone dragged him back. Gilly appeared, the babe strapped tight beneath a woolen shawl. Her knuckles were white around a clay cup. "Drink," she whispered. Sam accepted. Warm broth, faintly bitter with willow bark. He gulped once, twice, letting heat anchor him to flesh. When cup drained, Gilly took it back, hesitated. "How far?" she asked the silence between them. He had no gentle answer. Ravens from the Green Fork stopped 2 nights past. He forced himself to meet her eyes. Last message spoke of a fever among river folk. They burned their dead. Yesterday there were no fires. Gilly's lips trembled. The babe stirred, let out a soft coo that sounded too like a dying wheeze. "Can we flee west?" Sam shook his head. "Wind turns. The sickness rides any breath. As spores or a miasma, no scholar agrees. But outrunning wind." His voice broke. "We must deliver warning to Winterfell. If Northmen bar gates, they might yet contain spread past the neck." Her fingers brushed his. "Then we ride today. Ravens first," he murmured, though he saw in her eyes a truth. Few ravens left could fly, and fewer yet might outpace this new storm. He shuffled papers, stacking scrolls into bundles he could lash behind a saddle. "We'll carry knowledge. If knowledge fails, the wall of ice must stand once more, even if only in hearts." Gilly's fear hardened into purpose. "I'll ready the horses." Sam watched her go, gratitude and dread entwined. He gathered the bundles, lashed them tight, whispering prayers to every god he half remembered. And for the first time in his life, each letter's weight felt like armor thin as parchment between his flesh and an ending world. Daenerys Targaryen woke to the pop crackle of something burning that was not firewood. She sat bolt upright in her bedroll, breath white with pre-dawn chill. Smoke wafted heavy, sweet yet acrid, a smell like perfume spilled on a forge. Instinct sent her gaze to the nest. 3 sickly hatchlings still writhed beneath Drogon's wing, their small bodies pressed to his scorched belly for heat. They did not need, for he alone radiated enough to blister air. Ash clung to their translucent scales like damp snow, and their movements were sluggish now, as though even their fervid blood cooled in dawn's one pallor. But something else burned, patches of grass at the nest's rim, igniting without flame. They flared, hissed, and wilted into greasy clumps that smoked green. Each patch corresponded to a scorched paw print. The prints led away, eastward into knee-high stalks, whose tips bowed under the weight of some invisible toxin. Daenerys' arm throbbed beneath fresh linen wrappings. The blistered scale shapes had spread across her bicep. She had tried poultice honey, even the cooled ashes of gillyflower per Jorah's suggestion. Nothing slowed the bloom. Each heartbeat brought pricking heat, as if tiny teeth gnawed from inside. She forced the pain aside and rose. Grey Worm awaited beyond perimeter, visor masking disquiet. Though the edges of his spear-arm gauntlet bore a lacy pattern of blister scales too. Even the unsullied born of cut resilience were not immune. "Report," she commanded. "The hatchlings hunt, your grace," Grey Worm said. "Our scouts found a ring of dead goats 3 miles east, chests split from within. No hoof prints leaving, no wolves, just ash." Dananiawar. Her skin crawled. "And the wind?" "Southeast," he said. "Toward Kohor. Toward villages of grasscutters, toward trade caravans pushing summer grain to Pentos. Toward people who had no reason to fear dragons because dragons were tales again. Until her rebirth of fire and blood." Denny gazed at Drogon. His eyes, once bright carmine, now dulled to clotted garnet. He met her stare, a silent plea beneath implacable duty. Kill them? Save them? He did not know. She walked to the hatchlings beside him. They hissed low but did not lunge. Their bellies churned with violet and green motes, the colors swirling just beneath skin. She thought of wildfire, of sorcery bound in liquid glass. She thought of how glass can shatter. She laid a hand upon Drogon's jaw. His hide felt fevered. "We fly," she murmured. "You and I. We must corral the plague you birthed." He dipped his head. Muscles quivered, weak. He had eaten little, unwilling to leave eggs. Yet the wind demanded. She turned to Grey Worm. "Prepare the cages." "Cages, your grace?" "Trap the hatchlings still here. Forged bars. We will ferry them to Dragonstone's dungeon. Stone and salt may tame their heat." A gamble. Tyrion's counsel. But claws on grass tore further each hour. Grey Worm saluted. "It will be done." He hesitated. "And the lost 4? Her jaw tightened. "We track them, unearth their trail with every scout at our disposal." She glanced at the blister spreading under his gauntlet. Wear cloth soaked in vinegar over mouth and nose. Maesters of Meereen claimed vinegar slowed rot mists during the Pale Mare. "Perhaps it buys us hours now." Grey Worm dipped his head again and strode off to rouse smiths. Sparks soon leapt from makeshift forges, hammered iron shrieking into shapes not seen since Valyria's heyday, bars laced with glyphs copied from half-remembered lore. Dracaries turned inside out, sigils of binding. Daenerys saddled Drogon with trembling hands. It took 3 unsullied to cinch girth straps while he growled impatiently, tail sweeping ash. She did not know if he could still carry her far. His muscles trembled beneath scale, but they had no choice. Before dawn's full bloom, the two lifted on unsteady wings, ash spiraling down from his underbelly like black snow. The nest shrank beneath. 3 sickly hatchlings writhed alone until cages slammed over them. Spears prodding through bars to keep distance. Their shrieks, sharp as flensing knives, followed Drogon into reddening skies. 50 leagues to the west, Tyrion Lannister stared into the flames, licking Dragonstone's long hearth as Davos Seaworth unfurled a salt-stained chart. The Onion Knight traced a charcoal dark line from the narrow sea inland toward the Dothraki grasslands. Wind, speed, direction. Davos grunted. If these spores ride high currents, they cross the sea inside a moon. My sailors already report strange mists at dawn, taste of sulfur. Birds dead on deck without wound. Men. A log split in the grate, sparking. Tyrion's goblet rattled on a table. He took a swallow of dark arbor red, savoring its bite like a last normal thing. The queen rides the storm she's birthed. He pinched bridge of nose. We must ready the forge chambers under the castle. If she brings eggs, or gods forbid hatchlings, we entomb them beneath 1,000 tons of basalt. His gaze flicked to Varys, pale and still beside tapestry of old Aegon's conquest. Any word from King's Landing? Varys shook his hairless head. Cersei counts on chaos to weaken her foes. If plague reaches the capital, she trusts wealth to buy cures. Wealth cured nothing at Valyria's fall. Tyrion snorted. Tell her that. She'll send plague as wedding gift. He ran fingers along map edges. For once, his wit offered no remedy. Davos cleared his throat. If sea lane's close, we starve. Better to blockade ourselves before sickness drifts. We can last on stores a season. And surrender the realm beyond to fire? Tyrion asked. We will have a kingdom of corpses. Corpses pay no taxes and laugh at my quips. Then? Davos' weather-beaten face creased. Rather corpses out there than in here. But there is another path. Tyrion leaned forward. I'm listening. Maesters speak of cold's power over flame. Davos tapped northern wastes. Dragons fare poorly in deep winter storms. If we lure hatchlings north, perhaps wind chill dampens plague. And limber them up for the others to ride? Tyrion swallowed more wine. Forgive me if I prefer mid-range solutions, ones not requiring blue-eyed dead kings. Davos shrugged. Choices shrink each minute. Varys lifted a parchment. Samwell Tarly rides north with knowledge. He pressed the paper into Tyrion's hand. A meticulous sketch of scale blisters, notes on incubation hours. If we marry his findings to Old Town's apothecaries, we might craft masks or ointments. Cheerful notion. Tyrion muttered. So we cling to life with vinegar poultices while dragons cough spark across sky. We cling to life, repeated Varys softly. That it is the first duty. Hours later, on a hillside of chalk and scrub 20 leagues east of the ruined city Kuhor, a shepherd boy named Aron knelt beside a lamb curled still beneath a thorn bush. He looked for wolf punctures, found none. Wool smoked where body touched soil. He leaned closer, sniffed. The lamb's eyes were glassy, lips parted to reveal teeth slagged black. A shuffle of grass behind. Aron turned, heart hammering. A black shape, no larger than a dog, crouched under shadows. Wings mantled to ground, eyes dull yellow. Smoke whiffed from its nostrils with each slow breath. Aron's mind named it demon, then dragon. Though dragons were gone save the queen's faraway mount. He thought to run, but fascination rooted him. He reached a trembling hand. The dragonet inhaled, sides expanding. Its belly glowed a bruised purple. Aron froze. The beast exhaled. A plume of smoke more vapor than flame, drifting over lamb carcass. Where vapor touched wool, new smoke curled, smelling of cooking flesh. Aron gagged, stumbled backward. The dragonet hissed, but did not pursue. Instead it nosed at the carcass, nudging charred wool aside to lick liquefied fat seeping from blistered hide. As it fed, its scales pulsed brighter. A step snapped behind Aron. His older sister Vara crested the slope, crook in hand. She saw the scene and shrieked. Voice startled the beast. It spun. Wing beats kicked dust. Wind of disease washed across Vara's face. She coughed once, twice. Then everything changed. Aron dragged her home before sunset. She burned with fever, eyes bloodshot. Father brewed willow bark. Mother prayed to the black goat of Kuhor. Vara's coughs turned metallic. At dawn she spat cinders. By nightfall, she lay still. Lungs fused inside. Father wailed, quarreled with faith, then dragged Aron out to burn his sister on pyre so sickness fled. But smoke drifted over village roofs. A neighbor breathed once, coughed. Another. Within 3 days, Kuharans barred gates. Too late. Unseen moats had ridden smoke tails up city walls. Fires flared in tenements, fueled not by wood but by men's exhalations. Drogon's wings cut through haze layered like spoiled milk across the Dothraki sea. Daenerys clung to saddle rigging, eyes narrowed against stinging grit. Below, miles of grass snapped brown and stiff, forming windswept dunes more dune than blade. She scanned for glints of dragonet presence. Scorched rings, skeletal remains, creeping ash lines that traced a wandering path. Near dusk, they spied the first trail. A charred furrow weaving east. Dany guided Drogon lower. The furrow steamed faintly. In its trough lay carcasses of aurochs, massive creatures felled mid-stampede, their hides puckered around blistered lungs. Necks stretched heavenward, mouths agape in silent bellows. Around each carcass sprouted copper-petaled flowers too similar to those near nest. The flowers' scent enveloped Drogon, and he stumbled in flight, wings faltering, altitude dropping. Danny urged him skyward, coughing. Pain shot through blister arm. Dark droplets seeped beneath bindings, each drop sizzling against saddle leather. She tasted iron in breath. She realized the plague did not spare Dragon Rider. She pressed knees to Drogon's flanks, steering him upwind, away from reeking bloom. Only after ascending beyond haze did he steady. Her mind whirled. If flowers alone weakened Drogon and infected her, then each hatchling sowed fields not just with disease, but with weapons against its own sire. Nature warring upon itself, or magic shaping new order. She recalled wise men who spoke of balance, that when dragons grew rampant in old Valyria, the 14 flames spat greater firequakes to restore order. Was this plague similar, nature's lash to scour wings from sky? She, who dreamed of freeing world with dragons, now saw dragons birthing bondage of another sort. A sickness that spared neither innocent nor tyrant, a leash made of fear. Tears stung. Wind tore them away. She turned Drogon westward, toward rivers where Sam once said cool fogs gathered. Maybe cold water could trap spores. Maybe a dragon drowned in river might cleanse. But village smoke rose there now, tinted green. In Winterfell's great hall, Jon Snow clenched a raven scroll, knuckles white. Sansa watched, face marble. Bran, perched in carved weirwood throne by hearth, kept eyes hooded, lips moving in silent mantra. Sam's scrawl filled the page. Draconis Fatum confirmed. Hatchlings on loose Dieter. Fever ash inside 5 days. Winterfell stands between plague and true north. Must bar roads, burn bridges, cleanse air with pine pitch. Send ravens to the wall. Close castles. Fire persists in lungs even after death. Burn bodies, gather ashes in iron casks, cast into deep sea. Jon's jaw set. We rode with Queen believing dragons are salvation. Now? He could not finish. Sansa's gaze flicked to hearth. Flames lap thick logs. We remember stories of the shivers. Sickness that killed half the north. We survived. We can survive again if walls hold. Yet her voice trembled. Bran's wide eyes glistened. Walls hold flesh, not wind. He turned to Jon. You must fly south, find Daenerys. Only she can bear dragonfire upon dragonfire. He shut eyes. The song of the hatchlings grows. They seek each other. When 7 become one flame, wind will turn all world to tinder. Jon stepped back, dread blooming. How? How do I stop what I cannot touch? Bran's brow furrowed. Find the quiet isle, beneath cliffs of the sisters. There lies obsidian forged before Valyrian dawn, stone that drinks flame. He lifted a shaking hand. Dragons fled that isle once in elder days. Anchored twins of that stone on Queen's wings, let them drink the hatchlings' hearts. Nanda. Jon stared. Anchor. Stone on wings? Bran. That's madness. Yet visions seldom lied. Bran whispered. Madness rides our wind now. Meet it with equal steel. Sansa touched Jon's sleeve. If you leave, Winterfell lacks its king. Jon clasped her hand. Winterfell lacks the world if I stay. He turned to Lyanna Mormont. Fierce in corner. Summon bannerman, patrol neck. No traveler untested passes Moat Cailin. Lyanna nodded, jaw stubborn as granite. They'll face island quarantine or my spear. Jon squeezed Sansa's hand once more. Hold north. He strode for courtyard, cloak snapping. Ghost padded behind. Silent shadow. In stable, Jon saddled Rhaegal's gifted dragon's saddle, though no dragon waited. He would ride south on wind and prayer, and whatever winged fate awaited. Night fell purple over the Blackwater rush as Tyrion and Davos descended into Dragonstone's bowels. Forged chambers, once echoing with blacksmith hammer, now thrummed with unnatural heat. Dozens of braziers stoked high, radiating wave upon wave. Maester Gerardi supervised slaves pouring molten lead into narrow crevices between basalt blocks. Ceiling chambers, airtight. Glyphs in High Valyrian etched across iron gates, gleamed dull orange. Tyrion dabbed sweat from brow. A tomb fit for dragons. Let us pray they oblige by staying dead. Gerardis muttered a blessing. Obsidian dust mixed in lead seams may dampen worm fire. If Queen brings infected hatchlings, we chain them here. Davos eyed shivering slaves lugging chains thick as a man's thigh. Or they melt iron to slag. Tyrion managed a grin. Hope warms cooler than these flames. He turned as a page raced down tunnel. Raven from Driftmark. Viserion spotted. Wings tattered, near broken arm. Wounded but alive. Davos' brows lifted. If other dragons remain healthy, perhaps they fight hatchlings. Tyrion's mind raced. Or fall to sickness and multiply plague. We cannot know. He exhaled. Prepare Raven for Queen. Advise her to isolate Viserion if found. He climbed toward surface, passing walls etched with histories of old Valyrian conquests. Dragons bending knee nowhere. Forging empire in blood. Tyrion thought of empire now. An empire of ash wearing crown of plague. He hurried on. Far across dusk-washed water, at King's Landing's Red Keep, Cersei Lannister drank Dornish red on balcony, overlooking city's lantern swarm. Qyburn hovered, cowl shadowing sallow cheeks. Reports from Storm's End speak of fever among small folk. Some cough sparks. None survive third dawn. His voice held eerie fascination, as though observing hatching spiders. Cersei raised a brow. And it spreads north? Winds carry wisps. We closed gates. Burned a merchant cog that coughed its way up Blackwater. He smirked. Sailors insisted invisible fire burned within lungs. We found no flame, until autopsy. Cersei sipped. Then river will clog with corpses and block trade. Dragon Queen's gifts keep giving. She set goblet aside. Send ravens. Rumor that Daenerys unleashed plague to punish cities that spurned her claim. Fear turns hearts faster than swords. Qyburn's smile widened. And if plague reaches capital? She glanced at wildfire catapult towers, burgeoning secret caches and tunnels. Then we torch disease with true fire. Her gaze hardened. Let green flame cleanse flesh of traitors and innocents both. Only ashes bend. A gulp of wine. And ashes we rule. Lightning flashed west. Thunder rolling across horizon like distant war drums. She raised cup and toast to that thunder, lips red as blood. Somewhere above swirling storm, unseen spores drifted, hunting new lungs. Samwell, Gilly, and a retinue of 5 knights watch deserters rode hard along King's Road's muddy verge. Rain fell in sheets, cold enough to numb. That cold offered fragile hope, yet Sam's every breath felt heavy, and in back of throat a faint taste of copper lingered. He dared not speak of it, voice enough to betray suspicion. At dusk, they reached twisted remains of an inn. Windows shattered, doors ajar. Inside, embers glowed. They ventured, found bodies curled around hearth as if seeking warmth. No burn marks, yet flesh blistered scale-like. Sam knelt, felt cheek of a girl maybe 9, warm still. He recoiled. Hours dead, he whispered. Plague outran us. A watchman cursed. Gilly clutched babe. Sam forced calm. We burned them. They dragged pallets outside, stacked with straw, heaved bodies atop. Rain hissed on oil-soaked logs. Sam's hands shook flint. Sparks reluctant. Finally, flame took. It licked straw, then bodies. Steam and smoke rose thick, tinted faint green. Sam held cloth tight round mouth, prayed wind blew away. As smoke spiraled, he glimpsed within it shapes ephemeral. Wings of tiny dragonettes, jaws open. Hallucination? Fatigue. He trembled until smoke dispersed. Knights watched deserters refuse to stay. They slipped off into dark. Sam did not stop them. He doubted any road led far from plague. At dawn, Gilly found him pale, empty-eyed. You coughed in sleep, she murmured. Sam touched lips, red smear on palm. I must reach Winterfell. He forced breath, ignoring ache. Knowledge must outlive me. Gilly's hand on his cheek. It will. Ride, Dothraki. 2 days later, Daenerys and Drogon descended over the smoking ruins of V's Dothrak. The great horse statues lay toppled, bronze green with plague. Below, tents decayed in circular patches, as though nests of rot had blossomed and died. Scattered bones of riders littered path. Skulls cracked from within, dark marrow charred. Drogon's breath came labored. Each exhale carried flecks of black ichor. Daenerys felt hollow inside. They landed near the mother of mountains, where once she had eaten stallion heart. She slid from saddle, knees buckling. Arm infection crept to collarbone. She could barely lift waterskin. A sound broke silence. Hatchlings screech. From cavernous shadow beneath mountain's lip emerged the black dragonet. Grown larger now, knee-high to a horse. Its scales glistened like wet obsidian. Behind it trailed 2 more. The pale ashwing and iridescent oil scale. Eyes fixed on Drogon. Drogon rumbled, weak. The hatchling spread wings. Vapors of violet and green shimmered in throats. Daenerys stumbled between, voice ragged. Likiri! She extended blistered arm. The ashwing hissed, exhaling cloud that swirled around her. Heat pricked lungs. She coughed blood. Yet she stood. Tears cut ash streaks on cheeks. I am your mother. She croaked. The black hatchling paused. Head tilted. Its eyes flickered lamplight within. It inhaled slow, drawing in the cloud. Ashwing ceased exhale. Daenerys stepped closer. She felt sickness churn but ignored. Come, she whispered. The black hatchling murmured, sound almost a whimper. It took one crawling pace, then another. Behind, iridescent one mirrored. Hope flared. Drogon raised head, crooned a note soft. Then, a thunderclap. Sky ripped by bolt of blue lightning that struck mountain crest. Shockwave battered valley. The hatchlings recoiled, instincts flaring. Iridescent's maw opened. Jet of burning mist, streaked with sparks, roared past Dany toward Drogon. It seared his foreleg. He bellowed, stumbling. Fury trumped exhaustion. Drogon's chest fired to molten white. He unleashed torrent of fire. The mist met flame. Collision birthed explosion of purple-green conflagration that detonated in midair, raining burning droplets. Daenerys screamed as heat hammered her. She flung up arms, cloak catching fire. She rolled, smothering flames, skin blistering new. When smoke cleared, Ashwing lay in pieces, body ruptured by explosion. Iridescent staggered, missing a wing. Black hatchling screeched grief, lunged at Drogon. Drogon swiped talon. Swat too slow. Hatchling ducked, spat vapor directly into his wounded leg. Flesh hissed, scale sloughed. Drogon roared agony. Daenerys crawled, grabbed black hatchling's tail. Scales ice cold to touch despite heat. She pulled, tears, blood, sweat mixing. Hatchling twisted, bit her forearm. Pain white hot, but she held. Enough, she begged. The hatchling's bite eased. Its eyes, were they sorrowful? Confused? For heartbeat, they softened amber like Drogon's once were. Then purple flared again. It flung her aside. Wooden horns sounded outside valley. Dothraki stragglers drawn by blockade. They rode in, arrows knocked. Seeing beasts locked in clash, they fired. Shafts whistled. A dozen buried into iridescent hatchling. Its throat hissed motes that felled riders mid-gallop. Horses crashed, bodies twitching. Chaos fed on itself. Black hatchling launched skyward on still developing wings, vanished into rising dust. Iridescent collapsed, convulsing. Ashwing remained dead, its corpse already sprouting copper flowers. Drogon staggered to Daenerys, nudged her with snout. She pressed palm to his charred scale. I tried, she sobbed. Weakness swallowed. Unconsciousness followed. She awoke on a litter borne by Unsullied. Above, clouds hurtled north. Jorah's weary face hovered. We found you at dusk, he said. We ferry you to Dragonstone. Drogon, she rasped. He follows, wounded but alive. Hatchlings. He grimaced. We killed one, lost track of Black. His throat bobbed. Scouts report plague leaps ahead of every wind shift. Kuhor burns in green flame. Pentos shutters gates. Daenerys closed eyes. Shane nodded. I brought doom. You brought hope first, Jorah whispered. Hold on to that. She drifted into fever dreams where her babies crawled through veins of the world, reddening them. Jon Snow rode hard along roiling King's Road. Storm clouds bruised sky. On third night, he camped beneath ruin of an old sept. Ghost prowled perimeter. Jon studied obsidian shards Bran had insisted he carry, black glass cloudy with veins of pale ore. They drank firelight. Could they truly drink dragon hearts? Next dawn, roar echoed across forest. Jon mounted, followed sound until clearing opened. Ahead, Rhaegal circled, his lost dragon, scales emerald gold. But something dragged behind, a chain tethering an iron crate slung beneath belly. In crate, one of the sick hatchlings, the pale one? It writhed, steam curling between bars. Rhaegal snorted, uneasy. Jon spurred forward into Rhaegal's sightline. Dragon eyes widened recognition. He landed. Shaking forest floor. Jon dismounted carefully. Easy, old friend. He approached crate. The hatchling hissed. Steam seeped between bars. Moss browned. Rhaegal rumbled. Jon laid hand to crate's iron. Heat stung. But obsidian shards in pouch near heart warmed, not burned. Bran's words echoed. He drew shard, placed tip against bar. The shard shimmered. Steam brushed it, but instead of corroding, the obsidian pulsed and drew vapor inside, veins glowing. Hatchling shrieked, recoiled. Jon pressed farther. Vapor funneled into stone. The glow intensified, then died. The air stilled. Hatchling wheezed. Dull. Rhaegal crooned. Jon's heart pounded. Obsidian can drink plague. He turned eyes north. If stone could cage fire, there was hope. But he needed forge, chains of glass, and Queen's trust. He climbed onto Rhaegal's saddle, crate secured. They took flight toward Dragonstone, wings cleaving storm wall. Within Dragonstone's forge tomb, two of the original nest-bound hatchlings paced behind glyph bar cages. Their colors grayed, as though starved by iron and obsidian linework. Maesters noted sickness in their gouts weakening. Obsidian dust, along seams, drank vapors. Tyrion allowed himself first tenuous breath of relief, when sudden horn blast echoed courtyard. He hurried above. Sky filled with silhouettes. Drogon, black mammoth wounded, flapping ragged. Beside, Jon astride Rhaegal, an iron crate swinging. Behind them, on horizon, another shape. The black hatchling, thrice larger now, wings spanning 30 feet, vapors trailing like comet tail. Dany, pale and bandaged, dismounted first, collapsing. Tyrion rushed, caught her. She whispered, "Obsidian. Cages." Then fainted. Jon landed next, shouting for chains. In crate, pale hatchling convulsed. He met Tyrion's gaze. Obsidian binds them. We must lure Black into forge, trap with stone. Tyrion swallowed. Forge is built for such devils, but obsidian door has yet to cool. Then heat will benefit, Jon said. Horn blasts again. Black hatchling diving, screams fracturing air. It vomited plume of shimmering death toward battlements. Guards crumpled before smoke touched. Stone itself fissured. Tyrion barked orders. Archers loosed flaming arrows tipped with Lady Melisandre's old fire powder mixtures. Arrows struck plume, robbed some of potency, but hatchling barreled onward. Drogon leapt again, ignoring wounds, to intercept. His roar thundered love and fury. The two collided midair. Black hatchling snapped at wounded flesh, tearing scale. Drogon clamped jaws around hatchling's wing, wrenching dot. They plummeted, smashing onto forward courtyard, fracturing flagstones. Jon sprinted, obsidian shard in hand. Tyrion followed with dozen men dragging obsidian net weights. They tossed, shimmering net, over thrashing hatchling. The stone drank vapors, glowed orange. Hatchling shrieked, writhed. Drogon held it down with one talon, panting. Men heaved, chains, cinching. Tail whipped. One soldier fell back, armor sizzling where mist struck. But net held, vapors dwindling. At last, black hatchling lay still, body heaving, scales cracked. Tyrion exhaled. Into the forge. Seal before plume returns. They hauled monstrous burden across yard, steam rising. Inside forge tomb, heat suffocated, but obsidian seams glowed hungry. The hatchling was winched to central pit. Demons bolted. Gate slammed. Tyrion pulled lever. Obsidian door ground shut. Ceiling with thunk. Outside, Drogon collapsed, black ichor pooling. Daenerys weakly crawled to him, arms trembling. "You saved me," she whispered. He nudged her, eyes soft, lids drooping as exhaustion claimed. Jon knelt beside. Rhaegal stands guard above. Tiny plague left in sky dust. "But we have cages. We have stone." Daenerys' eyes, fever bright, met his. "We have chance." Tyrion joined, brow streaked soot. "For once, friends, let us toast later." He looked at forge smoke rising from vents, tinted slight green. "If obsidian holds, we buy time. If not." They did not finish. The wind off the sea shifted. Sweeping haze, south toward stormlands, carrying faintest tinge of copper sweet perfume. But within Dragonstone's heart, obsidian seams fed on vapors, glowing brighter than forge's molten iron, stone drinking sickness drop by drop. Night bled into dawn. On battlements, Davos gazed east where sun clawed horizon, its rim blurred. He breathed salty air laced with ash but tasted no copper. Below decks, maesters brewed ointments of pine tar and vinegar, wide-eyed at miracle stone that ate disease. In cells, caged hatchlings grew listless, their breaths thin. Still, none dared speak victory. For in forge tomb they heard, now and again, the distant boom of black hatchling, straining against obsidian chains, heartbreak mingling with hunger. And each boom shook castle walls, from crypt to highest tower, as though reminding all who lived that fire, once birthed, is never truly quenched, only contained for breath, heartbeat, generation. A reminder etched into every scar upon Daenerys' arm, every blister on Sam's throat, every soot-lined cough of small folk from Flea Bottom to Lonely Light. The world was wounded but breathing. Whether the wound would fester or heal lay in hands of broken queen, weary wolf king, cunning dwarf, loyal knight, and stones fashioned before dawn of memory. Outside, tide sloshed at basalt cliffs. Waves hissed against rock, like embers on water, or whispers of futures not yet burned. And in cradle of Dragonstone's forge, obsidian drank plague like night swallowing flame. While above seawall, Rhaegal and Drogon curled wing to wing beneath moon's fading glow. Two last titans keeping watch over sparks, still eager for Scott. Kate. Thick fog, heavy with brimstone, salt, and some subtler taint, clung to Dragonstone for 3 sleepless days. It pressed against crenellations like the breath of some unseen leviathan, rolling off curtain walls into the churning Black Sea, then returning on the morning tide, as though the island itself exhaled corruption, and begged the wind to take it away. No gulls wheeled above the battlements now. They had fled on the first night the black hatchling screamed in the forge tomb. That scream, raw, shattering, half mortal agony and half furnace roar, echoed through every corridor, setting torches trembling, loosening dust long settled on Aegon's basalt dragons. It was a dirge without language and a warning without words. The plague still lived, Daenerys heard every note of it. They gave her the queen's apartments atop the Sea Dragon Tower, so she might lie close to open air. But the walls seemed to pulse with the hatchling's heartbeat, and the sheets smelled faintly of vinegar to mask the scorched copper stench that seeped through cracks. She did not sleep. She drifted. In fever-soaked moments she floated high above the stepstones, watching whorls of plague cloud unfurl like ink in water. In others, she plummeted headlong into the forged tomb's maw, obsidian teeth ringing her with darkness. Her blistered arm boiled beneath linen, every throb a spark off some invisible anvil. At times she thought she felt small claws testing her veins from within, scratching to escape. On the third dawn she rose unbidden, shrugged on a crimson robe, and left the chamber before the handmaidens arrived with tinctures. Light was gray and sour in the tower stair. 2 unsullied guards straightened as she descended, but she waved them aside, moving as if in dream. Her feet knew the way. Down the narrow corkscrew, across the cold-swept courtyard where Rhaegal perched, scales glittering green and gold, through the lower vaults where the air already shimmered with forge heat, and finally to the sealed obsidian door. The door glowed faintly from within, orange veins pulsating through black glass seams, an immense lid on a cauldron of living fire. Jon stood there, sword belted but unsheathed, eyes rimmed red from wakefulness. A ring of ironworkers, maesters, and unsullied, ringed the archway behind him, all silent, waiting for something none could name. Daenerys halted beside him. Neither spoke for a long moment. He studied her blanched face, the sheen of sweat on her temples, the sharp relief of collarbones beneath robe. She studied the obsidian's glow. "How long has it been silent?" she asked at last, voice rasping from disuse. 3 hours, Jon replied. "First pause since we sealed it." He glanced at the blood-spattered cloth tied around her arm. "You should be abed." She gave a small, lifeless smile. "Dragons do not rest while storms rage." She laid her uninjured hand upon the door. The heat stung but did not burn. Within that heat, she felt a vibration, like a heartbeat muffled by thick wool. Still, alive. "Sam arrives today," Jon said quietly. "He's brought scrolls, treatises on plague-borne fires, counteragents of obsidian salts. He thinks we can refine the stone into salves that—" "Salves?" She closed her eyes. Would they heal the burned horses south of the Mander? The children coughing ash in Qohor? Jon's mouth hardened. "I don't know." Her eyes, when they opened, burned brighter than fever alone. "There is no balm for fire that lives in breath. We must snuff the source." She traced the seam's warm edge. "Open it." Jon stepped half back, startled. "We barely trapped the beast. If you unchain it—" "Not unchain. End." She looked up. "Obsidian drinks its fumes, but the heart beats still. It needs more than stone." "You mean Drogon," he realized. "If Drogon burns it—" "Fire fought with fire," she finished. "True Valyrian fire, tempered by mother blood. Drogon birthed this plague. Drogon's flame must be the knife." Her voice trembled. "And I must wield that knife." Jon thought of the courtyard battle, of Drogon wounded, limping, yet rising for her. "He is weak. I am weaker," she admitted. "But still I ride." Footsteps approached. Tyrion, cloak thrown hastily over linen shirt, hair wild. He looked from one to the other, reading decisions etched in their silence. "I ought to be drunk before hearing this," he muttered, "but I doubt there's wine strong enough." He planted himself between them and the door. "Whatever madness you plot, remember. If the hatchling escapes again, every man, woman, and goldfish on this island will cough sparks by nightfall." Daenerys' lips thinned. "Do you trust me, Tyrion?" "I trusted you when you burned the slavers and spared their children," he said. "I trusted you when you chained your dragons rather than risk one more child's death." He glanced at the rippling obsidian. "I trust you still, though my liver protests." He stepped aside. The maesters hissed protest. Grey Worm's spear butt clattered in salute, yet his eyes brimmed fear. John hefted the lever that controlled the winch. Gears groaned. At his nod, Unsullied cranked. Chains rattled, counterweights dropped, and the obsidian door began its slow ascent, bleeding light across the tunnel floor. Heat poured out, scorching as forge blast. Even at 10 paces the front ranks fell back. Shielding faces with shields turned sideways. Daenerys stood unmoving. Smoke coiled around her ankles, violet-tinged, smelling of orchids charred in oil. Within that smoke loomed the hatchling. No, not hatchling now. It had grown twice again in these few days, cramped within the pit. Wings shagged with iridescent coal dust, eyes pits of molten amber. Obsidian chains ran across its chest and left foreleg where Drogon's earlier swipe had half-severed bone. Those chains now sagged, black scales having melted and refused around links. It saw daylight and screamed. Flame, curdled purple, edged by lightning green, splashed against the rising door, but obsidian drank half, absorbing color into its veins until hammer-strike cracks spider-webbed across the stone. A flake the size of a dinner plate burst outward at Tyrion's feet, hissing. Daenerys strode forward. Jon grabbed her elbow. "You must ride. Let me draw it." "No." She met the monster's gaze, and once more memory flickered. A naspit of a newborn blind nuzzling for heat. This is between mother and child. She stepped through the threshold. The chamber widened beyond. A cavern formed by half-natural basalt columns, fused with Valyrian masonry. The floor was iron grate over magma vein. Heat shimmered in sheets. Daenerys advanced to within arm's length of the beast. Its nostrils flared. Steam licked her wet hair to curls. It inhaled, prelude to a killing blast. She raised her wounded arm, tore back linen. Scales of blister had darkened to onyx, forming a living gauntlet. She pressed those scales against its snout. "Likiri," she whispered. "Peace, little storm." For one heartbeat, it stilled. She felt its shuddering breath under her infectious scales, as if disease spoke to disease. The hatchling's pupils narrowed. Recognition? Hunger. She could not tell. She had no more heartbeats to wonder. Drogon's roar thundered outside the arch. He surged, half hobbling, shoulder lanced by fresh bandage. Jon vaulted to his saddle, though the straps still hung loose. Drogon shoved past the ranks, forcing men to scatter. His wings half spread inside corridor, scraping stone, but the great wedge head slid through door gap, teeth bared at the monster threatening his queen. The hatchling turned, eyes widening at its sire. Something flickered, primal submission or rancor at abandonment. It spat a lance of corrupted flame. Drogon replied, not with fire at first, but with a single boom from deep chest, a sound of ancient authority. The two blasts met mid-air, collided, purple and shadow swallowing bright orange for an instant, then imploding in a sphere of roiling white that sucked air from lungs. Maesters gasped, torches gutted. Daenerys stumbled, but retained footing. She slipped sideways, ducked beneath a slack chain, reached Drogon's shoulder just as Jon cinched final strap. "Dolgi!" He extended a hand. She grasped. Swung up behind him, ignoring scream of muscles. "Together!" he shouted over forge wind. They wheeled Drogon backward through door, hatchling lunging at heels, snapping chain anchor from magma grate. Stone and iron shrieked. Tyrion shouted, "Now!" Unsullied slammed lever. Heavy weights crashed, but hatchling's head already jammed between door and arch. Chains snapped like harp strings. The door stuck halfway. Drogon reared, heaved queen and king beyond corridor mouth into courtyard, awash with panicked soldiers. The hatchling burst after them, obsidian links flailing like black serpents, wings unfolding to full span. It was a mountain, whelped from a mountain. Fearsome, majestic, wrong. Drums sounded from seawall. Davos had ordered scorpions loaded with obsidian-tipped bolts. At blast of horn, 3 bolts streaked. Hatchling rolled mid-air, 2 skittering off scales in showers of sparks. The third grazed wing membrane, leaving molten tear. It shrieked, A cyclone of foul heat fanned across ranks, dropping archers clutching throats. Jon leaned into Drogon's neck. High and fast. Drogon hauled skyward, claws gouging basalt. Daenerys clung, vision smearing with speed and fever. Below, the hatchling clawed sky too, though its wounded wing lagged. Still it rose, trailing a comet tail of plague vapor. They cleared parapets into open firmament, pale dawn just bleeding to saffron. The wind tasted clean above fog. Drogon beat for altitude. Each stroke shook Queen's bones. The hatchling followed like a shadow, though lag widened. Jon drew Valyrian steel sword, Longclaw, its edge drinking sunrise. "When we turn, give him full fire," he shouted. "My lungs burn," she warned. "I'll guide," he said. "Your will commands." She rested forehead to Drogon's scale. "Dracarys," she breathed. Orange heat blossomed in Dragon's belly, warming her thighs through saddle. They climbed until clouds wreathed them. Then Jon hauled reins. Drogon rolled, dropping into stoop. Air howled in ears. Clouds shredded around them. They arrowed straight for the Plagueborn, who flailed rising past its own vapor slipstream. At collision's cusp, Drogon loosed his flame. It was no ordinary torrent. Days trapped in sorrow and sickness had distilled his inner fires to something new. Lighter, whiter, whiter, pure heat stripped of most color. The torrent punched a tunnel through chill air, striking Hatchling's chest, dead center. For a breath, the monster resisted, its own purple-green exhalation boiling outward to meet the beam. Colors spinning like duel of dragon's ghosts. But obsidian infection within could not match Sire's furnace. The Plagueborn's chest plates cracked first, splitting along chain scars. Flame penetrated seam, roaring inside body cavity. Its scream became howl of bellows feeding forge from within. Membranes ignited, eyes burst. Entire silhouette bloated and tore. A shockwave of emerald and violet flame erupted in a sphere that blotted sun. Drogon recoiled sideways, wings buffeted. Jon raised braced arm, Daenerys buried face in Jon's back. A rain of glassy shards pelted them. Molten scale cooled to icicle. Each hissed when touching Drogon's hide, but did not sear. Vapor dispersed into mist that sunlight devoured. When noise subsided, only drifting cinders remained, spiraling down to sea like dying fireflies. Nothing moved beneath. Yet triumph tasted bitter. Daenerys felt her fever spike. Vision doubled. On her infected arm the black scales dulled, cracking, leaking dark drops that smoked on wind, then blew away like dust. Jon felt her sway. He urged Drogon into glide, steering back to castle despite shouts from ground. The Scorpion crews, seeing flare above, cheered faintly, though coughs soon replaced cheers. Foul smoke still clinged to parapets. Lesser vapors lingered. They landed in the main yard. Maesters rushed, plying masks soaked in pine tar. Tyrion limped across stones, sweeping fragments of plague scale that cracked under boot. Samwell, travel dirty, arrived at same instant, saddlebags bulging scrolls. Jon dismounted, catching Daenerys as she sagged. "Easy," he murmured. He lowered her to stool. Sam knelt, horrified at arm. "Obsidian salve," he stammered, rummaging for vial. "We grind stone with vinegar, quicksilver. Apply to lesions." She smiled weakly. "Save for those who breathe." Still, she let him smear gray paste that hissed on contact, numbing flesh. Tyrion peered skyward. One left alive within forge, 2 in cages below. We may contain." He almost believed it. But Sam's eyes, unfocused. "I passed a village near the Trident. Men sick without dragon's breath. Vapors drift miles. Contain hatchlings, perhaps. Not wind already sown." Silence. Jon met Tyrion's gaze. In that shared look, the scale of their predicament. Daenerys forced herself to stand. "Then we ride the wind." She gestured to Sam's scrolls. "You spoke of salves that drink flame. We grind every ounce of obsidian in dragonstone. We sow clouds of dust above sick lands, Let wind carry cure where it carried plague. Sam blinked. Obsidian dust. Inhaled. It could bind ash-borne particles. We'd need trebuchets, ski ships. Dragons, Jon said. Drogon, Rhaegal. Perhaps Viserion, if located. We load barrels. Shatter midair. Maester Garrides frowned. Inhaling stone dust could scar lungs too. Daenerys' laugh cracked. Scarred lungs or burned to cinder. Let the world choose. She swayed. Sam steadied her. Tyrion's mind raced. Obsidian mines on Dragonstone Limited. But Skagos, the Shadowlands beyond Ashai, Rick Veins. Shipping would take months. Not ships, Davos grunted. Approaching. Balloon craft. Summer Islanders fly silk rigs. I've seen one. Light fast. With dragonglass ballast we might chase currents. Tyrion arched brow. The Onion Knight proposes flight without wings. Ay, Davos said. But with wind at back, cheaper than dragons we cannot spare. Jon considered. Split strategy. Dragons for immediate dust runs near infection centers. Balloons for broad sweep after. Sam nodded, brain already cataloging weight ratios. We must refine dust, grain fine as flour. Mix with seawater. Evaporate, grind again. Need alchemists. Tyrion sighed. King's Landing boasts too many pyromancers. Perhaps they earn pardon. Daenerys' legs buckled. Jon lifted her. She whispered, "Make ready." They carried her to Maester's tower. As door closed, Tyrion remained in corridor, back to cold stone. Battle won. War unfurling larger. He closed eyes. Night deepened. Jon stood on rampart beside candle lantern. Ghost sat silent, red eyes scanning sea. Waves broke steady. Soothing. Yet his heart hammered. He thought of Bran's prophecy. 7 flames into 1. Now 6 remained. 3 cage-bound below. 2 within forge. 1 plague-born dead. Others weakened. 1 still at large? No, the hatchlings born to nest. Numbered 7. 3 cage, 1 forge now ash. 1 killed east by Jean's capture. 2 starved within cage? He recounted. Original free 4. 1 pale caught. 1 black killed. 2 unaccounted. He felt cold. Where were they? Thunder rumbled low, though sky clear. Ghost's ears pricked toward northeast. Jon followed gaze. Horizon flickered faint green. A rider clattered upstair. Page Garrick. My lord, sightings from Gulltown. Blue fire in sky. Jon's goot twisted. The missing hatchlings, he breathed. And Viserion wounded. Ravens claim White Dragon fights 2 smaller, above the veil. Jon turned toward keep windows where Daenerys slept. He thought of her fever, of lungs scorched by unborn flame. Could she ride again? Must she? Footsteps approached. The queen herself, robe fluttering, Sam beside protesting. Her eyes burned brighter than torches. I go, she said before Jon spoke. Drogon follows. The salve. It slows plague, Sam admitted, but does not cure. She weakens. Daenerys placed hand on Jon's cheek. If I fall, promise me wind still carries obsidian. He caught her hand, pressed to lips. You will not fall alone. Tyrion arrived out of breath. Rhaegal is rested. Saddle ready. Drogon cannot fly far yet. He looked to Sam. We mount obsidian barrels to both. Dust the battlefield. Sam opened mouth. Shut it. Nodded. I will prepare charges. Lanterns swayed as castle roused. Smiths hammering barrel lids, alchemists grinding stone, sailors hauling silk canvas from forgotten holds. Above all, the hatchling screams had ceased. The forge chamber lay still, as though plague-born sensed final battle beyond its chains. Before midnight, Daenerys and Jon mounted Rhaegal, wings mantled luminous in moonlight. Drogon hobbled after, refusing to stay. 2 casks affixed to each saddle, glass vials within filled with obsidian dust. A mechanism of Tyrion's design, pull lever, casks rupture, dust released in trailing wake. Grey worms saluted. Tyrion offered flask. Jon declined. Victory vintage awaits return, dwarf promised with shaky smile. Wind carried dragons northeast. As castle receded, flickers ahead intensified, casting eerie aurora across sea. They cleared storms end by dawn. Below, hamlets burned green. Folk dragged carts seawards, coughing. Dust billowed in their wake, whirlwinds carrying seeds of fire. Jon clenched reins harder. Vale Mountains rose jagged as broken crowns. Storms nested among peaks, lightning spiking clouds. And there, in valley between moon gates, glittered battle. Viserion circled tight pattern, wings ragged but game. Below him darted 2 dragonets of copper and sable hue, each the size of a war galley, belching purple fire. Viserion's frost-tinged flame, an oddity grown since unseen infection, countered theirs, but each clash shed motes that rained on pine forest, igniting sickly blue fires. Rhaegal trumpeted challenge. Viserion answered weary. Daenerys patted Rhaegal's neck. Left flank, she told Jon. He guided dive. Drogon lagged a league behind, but his roar reached valley all the same. Dragonets broke from Viserion, angling toward new prey. Jon drew sword. No use against scale at this speed. But instinct ruled. Daenerys yanked release lever. The first cask burst 100 feet above valley, disgorging black cloud. Obsidian dust caught sunrise, sparkling like starfield. Wind swept it across approaching dragonets. The effect was immediate and grotesque. Purple fire venting from copper dragonet sputtered when passing through cloud, turning ash-white, then snuffed entirely. The beast wheezed, wings faltering. It clawed at its own throat as if choking. Scales flaked where dust clung, leaving pits. The sable one veered aside, dodging main plume, but caught fringes. Its fire guttered to embers. It hissed, retreating. Viserion seized chance. It dived, raked copper's spine with talons tipped in frost, splitting vertebrae. Dragonet plummeted, smashing pine canopy, shattering trunk after trunk, sending up geysers of embers and obsidian dust mixed. Sable dragonet climbed, banking wide arc to regroup. Drogon now arrived. Scream, splitting clouds. Despite wounds he surged, flame streaming white-hot. Sable exhaled remnant purple, but meeting flames neutralized. Explosion minor. Drogon drove through smoke, jaws closing on Dragonet's throat, crushing. The neck snapped with echo like cracking glacier. Drogon released, letting carcass fall blazing into river. Silence followed, broken only by thunder rumbling. Jon circled to spray remaining dust over burning pines, suffocating violet sparks. Where dust settled, fires dimmed from sickly green to black ash. Daenerys slumped forward. Jon felt weight shift. He banked gently to ledge near a crystal stream. Viserion landed opposite, panting. Drogon perched above, watching. Jon lowered Queen to ground. Her eyes parted, glassy. "We did it?" she whispered. "For now," he answered. He dabbed water on cloth, pressed to fevered brow. The black scales on her arm had begun to flake away, revealing raw pink beneath. He dared hope. Sam salve, carried in belt pouch, came out. Jon applied fresh layer. Paste no longer hissed, infection receded. A gust of clean mountain air filled lungs absent copper tang dotting. Viserion crooned. Rhaegal mirrored. The 2 healthy dragons nuzzled Queen's hair like worried hounds. Drogon descended last, folding wings to throne around them all. He nudged her chest, a rumble of deep affection. She smiled faintly, brushed his snout with weak fingers. Thunder ceased. Clouds parted enough to reveal dawn full, pure. Jon helped her sit against warm scale. "Rest, my queen." She shook head slowly. Too much to mend, but a beginning. She gazed at valley, burnt pines, dead plague beasts, drift of obsidian dust catching sunlight like new snow. "Listen," Jon said. She frowned, then realized. There were birds again. A warbler sang from rock face. She closed eyes. Tears slipped free. "Hope has wings too," she murmured. They returned to Dragonstone by dusk. Tyrion wrote dispatches to every lord. Instructions to build furnaces for obsidian dust, to launch barrels by catapult ahead of storm fronts. Davos organized fleets to ferry stone up and down coast, while maesters at Old Town refined alchemical binders to prevent lung scarring. Elsewhere, Summer Island masts rose with silk balloons, daring jet streams. Sam's salva cured first 300 afflicted within Dragonstone's dungeons, though some lungs remained scarred. Still, survivors lived, learning to breathe spasms of hope. Grey Worm and Unsullied marched caged hatchlings, now near starvation, into newly expanded obsidian vaults. There they would stay, fed on stone-tight rations of goat that kept power in check without stoking plague. The maesters debated whether to cut throats and be done. Daenerys forbade it. One day, she believed, a cure might tame them. Jon visited Forge Tomb once more. Blackened remains of Plagueborn had been hauled to molten pits. Slag fused with obsidian to create bricks rumored to neutralize any flame. He ran fingers across one cooling brick and wondered if Song of Ice and Fire truly ended, or simply changed key. Atop tower, Daenerys gazed north. Bruised arm clean, save faint outline of scale tattoo. Jon joined, linking fingers in hers. She leaned into shoulder. "We will never be rid of dragons," she said softly. "But perhaps we can teach them not to burn the world that birthed them." Jon nodded. "And teach the world not to fear what it must one day need again." Her eyes lifted to sky where Rhaegal and Viserion circled. Free, and where Drogon rested regal, on Keep's crown. Sunset painted their wings crimson, gold, black, a banner of watchful guardians, not conquerors. Beyond that sunset sprawled land still coughing, fields still smoldering, work unending. She squeezed Jon's hand. "Come. There are ravens to write, words sharper than any sword." Tyrion's flask waited below. Davos charts. Sam's vials, various silent calculations. From forge heat and sea wind, they would weave a net of dust and flame. A new wall of glass, stretched not to divide kingdoms, but to bind them in shared breath. Fire would become cure. Plague would become warning etched into memory and stone. Dragons would still ride storms, but mothers and fathers of men would ride too, armed with knowledge that flame can both sear and sterilize, that wings can shadow fields or shield them. And somewhere beneath grasses of a distant steppe, copper-petaled flowers would bloom again. But this time, the wind would carry with their scent a dust fine as snow, black as night, drinking poison even as it fell. Thus the war of breath against flame yielded neither triumph nor defeat, but an armistice written on cloud and wave, renewed with every rising sun. And for the first time since Drogon's egg sizzled in sand, Daenerys Targaryen believed the world might live to sing new songs of dragons, songs of plague undone, of stone that drank fire, of a queen who learned that to rule was to heal, and to heal was to walk always where the fire burned hottest. Fearless, unbroken, until the last ember cooled into dawn.